A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special discussion. You might be wondering as to what on earth am I going to discuss today and why am I here on this timeline trying to beam into your house and trying to have a conversation with you. Well, there is a reason for this. One is that you know what is the situation in our country right now in terms of economically. A lot of people, a lot of skilled people, especially in the youth category and in the executive category, they are trying to migrate. And they're going into various parts of the world because for them, the reason for that is they do not find Sri Lanka to be a place where they can actually harness their skills and live a quality life. So because of that, despite it is a very sad story for the nation, that is what's happening. So being a responsible media channel, it is also our duty to understand what your requirement is and try to give you that information which you desperately need. A lot of people have been asking us, how can we do this right? How can we migrate to another country? You can go into various websites, you can go into various information providing resources. But then what will happen is when you land into that particular country, you might find, hey, hang on, I did not come for this, I did not come for that. So there is a lot of areas which you need clearance. And for that, you need to go to a place where they will support that. Tonight, I have the pleasure of talking to Surani Punchiheva. She is from the Australian Migration Centre. Surani, good to see you. Thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Mahesh.
You are from the Australian Migration Centre, which means these days you might be pretty busy.
Yes, we have been actually. There is a surge of calls, and obviously the tendency is that we receive the calls from skilled people. So as you correctly mentioned, the executive level and above.
Surani, I want to understand what exactly is going on in terms of, migration per se. This is a very complex subject. You are a consultant at the Australian Migration Centre. And tell us a little bit about what exactly, like, where do you serve in terms of, helping people when they come to your centre, the Australian Migration Centre? What kind of services do you provide?
Basically, we do answer their queries by trying to assist them to test their eligibility for migration. So various people will have various agendas, and also they may belong to different categories. So it could be an engineer, it could be an accountant, or you might be a CEO, and you might be a parent of children who are residing in Australia. And also you might be getting married to an Australian partner and so forth. So the requirements are varied. So what we initially do is we assess their so-called eligibility for an Australian visa, which is very important.
You serve only to Australia?
Yes, we do. We are specialized in Australia.
So let me ask this question. Now, if I come there, and I say I want to go to Australia, and I say I think it's going to be a better life there for me, what would be the right way to do it? What exactly would be the process for me? Because I can go to the Australian government website and I will never read every detail about what they say, how to migrate, because it is a very complex process. So what is the right way to do it?
Well, you correctly said the information is out there. It's all out there. It's spelled out very clearly, and the government, as a responsible government, Australia has provided ample information to the public. But that itself may not serve your individual purpose. And you would wonder, and you would often sink yourself in this information, not knowing which direction to take. So in providing our consultancy, what we do essentially is we check their eligibility according to the category that they potentially may belong to. So, for example, if I give you a highly skilled person, if the person is in IT industry, first of all, we look at and we evaluate their qualifications, their work experiences. And then we take them through by calculating the points. So skill migration per se is a point-tested program. So any applicant would need to have 65 points and above. That is a basic criteria we call.
What do they give points for?
They do give points for various attributes, starting from your age. So there are brackets of age that people would get. The top age group would be between 25 to 33, where the optimum points are awarded to, which is 30 points. So in a 65 pointer, 30 points if you capture with age, exactly. it's really large. And then you look at their qualifications, basically. So if you have a degree or a master's degree, that would capture 15 points there. Then one of the fundamental requirements, we call a basic criteria, is your English language ability. So that is tested through various means. We have in Sri Lanka PTE and IELTS or even TOEFL. So there is a mark that you need to get, which is 7 in each band in an IELTS general test, or PT 65 and above. So that gets you 10 points. And there is another way of enhancing that to get superior English, which is 8 and above or 79 and above. So those are the 3 main criteria. Then we go into other additional points where you look at your work experience points. So the work experience is calculated in a very peculiar way that happens according to the industry they are in and their qualification, work experience together. The points are awarded to and for the work experience they have. So some authorities, they regard their pre-qualification work experience, we say, which means prior to your degree or your master's degree or even your diploma, those work experience are counted and points are awarded for them. However, certain authorities only take work experience into consideration after you qualify. So you need to know actually where to really award the points. So I have seen few refusals. People had really attempted to look into their process per se, and their work experience was calculated wrongly and the entire application is refused. So you've got to be careful. So that's one of the attributes you need to really be cautiously approach.
That is why a lot of people come to people like you, consultants in visa and also migration processes, because it is a very, very tedious process. You have a lot of hidden areas which you might not even know. Let's talk about the current situation in this country in terms of migration. Who do you see, like what are the categories that seems to be like, going to Australia? Because Australia, like the UK, has become a destination for Sri Lankans. We have, most of us have a family member there, or someone, a friend, someone is either in Australia, either in Canada, either in UK or in the Middle East. So what kind of people now, with the economic crash here in Sri Lanka, what is the trend right now in terms of who's going into those countries?
Right. I mean, this is a demand-driven system. Yes, there is a supply from this end, or from the entire globe, but it doesn't mean that you would qualify and your application would be approved. Exactly. So the Australian end has to have your occupation in demand, basically. So these occupations are gazetted and they are reviewed periodically. So basically speaking, if you have the intention, you must see whether your occupation is gazetted in the government list. So the
How can I know that?
Yes, the information is available in the departmental website, and if you go into the skilled occupation list, you would be able to sort of find out whether your occupation is there. Now, you asked me what's the trend, which is a very important question. Now, Australia, at the moment, and looking into the future, they have actually drawn their 40-year plan ahead. So they have identified 4 main industries that would be potentially in demand going into the future. Number 1 is healthcare, then we have information technology, then tourism and hospitality, and the 4th one is education and training. So if you are in one of these industries, the potential for you is high.
So let's say in terms of the people who are actually going into that going into Australia for that particular per se. Now those days we understood that like you just explained, a point system is there. Now apparently, am I supposed to, let's say I have a family, my spouse is there, I have 2 kids, and if by any chance if I want to go, am I the one who's supposed to go, or what exactly is the process right now? And also, like you mentioned, saying that these are the categories that are in demand. If I'm not in one of those categories, so how can I actually, is Australia closed for me?
Basically, that's one of the questions people do ask all the time. If my occupation is not there, what do I do? But if your occupation is not in the gazetted list, obviously that's closed. But Mahesh, the good thing is this occupation list is over 400. So the chances, if you are qualified enough, let's say you have a bachelor's degree in your area or even a diploma for that matter, and lots of Sri Lankans are highly qualified, having a master's, or now I see the trend in PhDs. So if you have this qualification component covered and industrial experience to an extent, the chances are very, very high. And to support that, if you have your spouse as a skilled person, then we assess the spouse as well. So that not only contributes in a points manner, but it also enhances your chances to be picked up by state and territory governments in their nomination process, which I want to touch on that. Yeah. So people are not aware of this state territory nomination program. It has been there for the past 20 years or so, but it was not the prominent method per se. So people used to apply as independent candidates or through the relative sponsored, which you mentioned earlier, but not through the state-sponsored scheme. Now, what...
let me interrupt you a little bit, try to understand. Now, you said a list that exists from Australia. Now, which is like if you go to the Australian Home Affairs or Border Control or which site that gives that list. Now, is that the list for the whole of Australia, or once there is a list for the whole of Australia and then there are lists for the states? What exactly is there 2 types of categories? Oh.
Yes, it's a very vital question. The Home Affairs site will actually cover the entire list. So 400 plus occupations would be gazetted by the government.
That's the whole of Australia.
Whole of Australia. So it has various categories, particularly if we talk about the offshore, we call, you know, anyone who's applying from Sri Lanka. So there are 3 main categories coming under that, which we, if I may specify them by subclass, subclass 491, 190 and 189. Those are the 3 main subclasses that anyone would be applying as a skilled immigrant from offshore in general terms. So the federal government has gazetted all these occupations under one umbrella. And then you asked a very vital question about state. Yes, the states do have their own lists, but the occupations do come from the federal list. And how they define their list would be depending upon the economic need in that particular state. For example, now if you look at ACT, Australian Capital Treasury, that, you know,
that's Canberra.
That is Canberra, and all the administrative processes are happening in Canberra. So the skills required there would be substantially different to what is required in Western Australia, where mining and other industrial activities are taking place. So the states have been given a lot of powers by the federal government to select their own skilled pool. So they have their specific list, and not only that, they have their specific criteria. So one state may be a bit lenient in terms of certain occupations, where the other state would have the same occupation with different requirements and criteria. So you've got to really go in deep and think, okay, now, for example, I'm an accountant, so my list is in the federal list, but how do I go about this application process? Would the states come and sponsor me? What are my other requirements? So these are the things.
That is exactly the question now. When I apply, when I go and get the list and I get the federal list, and it says my application is there, but then I look in all the state ones, but apparently there is nothing. Now what does that mean? Does that mean that the Australian government would take my application and put me somewhere that is required? Or let's say I want to go to Melbourne because I have a lot of relatives there, and I want to work there, and the skill is also there. So I ask, you know, hey, can I go to Melbourne? But then when the application comes, they say, no, sorry, not here. You need to go to Adelaide. That is your location. Now, what exactly, how do they decide that?
Right. So that decision is pretty much your decision. It's not the Australian government's decision. Now, the eligibility may differ. Now, you took the occupation accountant as an example, which is in the federal list, and you then also said the occupation is not in any of the state lists, but I want to go to Melbourne. However, the good news is the occupation can be, because it is in the federal list, and it is in the independent category, so you can apply as an independent immigrant, which allows you to get a permanent residency and settle practically anywhere in Australia. So how the state program works is, usually there are two types of visas under the state program. One is permanent. Nowadays we see a trend in particularly government of New South Wales, Sydney, where a lot of people want to go. They are giving straight on permanent residency sponsorships. So there is this permanent scheme as well as the temporary schemes, and they have their own set of different criteria. So within the temporary scheme, you again have all the regions participating. I think it is about, if my information is correct, about 14 different regions, particularly in New South Wales, participating in this program. So they are also, on their own way, they're trying to attract migrants into their own region. So there is competition. So the chances are, at this particular moment, is very high for any applicant.
What you're saying is that if you have the skills, Australian government is looking for you, and they're actually trying to ask you to come there because they want to develop. Because if you look at the whole Australian, the land mass, it is a huge, vast area, but the population is centered around in very small cities, and I think the Australian government wants to keep expanding. I think the population is around 20 million.
25 million.
Exactly. Similar to Sri Lanka, so we are in this little island and they're in that huge land there. I want to take a short commercial break. I'm in conversation with Surani Punchiheva from the Australian Migration Centre. She gave you a lot of information in terms of, if you're thinking of moving to Australia, what are your categories are. Lots of more questions coming right up after this short commercial break. Stay with us.